Good afternoon from Birmingham, and here I am. I'm joined by Sir Dave Thompson, QPM, the Chief Constable of West Midlands Police, at Dave, your force headquarters.
Indeed, yeah. Welcome, Ben. Welcome to Birmingham.
Great pleasure of mine to be here. Thank you for your hospitality here. And having just gone back upstairs to get our wet coats, to get our raincoats, it's now dried out. So we're going to have a short walk round this immediate part of Birmingham to recently opened Force Museum.
That's right.
And we're going to talk about a number of issues ahead of your not quite impending retirement, but your announced retirement in roughly August, September.
It's the last lap this year, as I like to
So
say,
it's coming up, definitely last lap, finishing tape in sight. So let's head round this way. And Dave, I'm going to start with almost the question of the day, the hour. Here you are. You've been in policing now for some, I think, of the order of 32 years.
32 years, yeah.
And we'll just err on the side of caution here.
So there we go.
Yes, I don't want to get you run over. 32 years. You've been the Chief Constable here since I think 2016. Prior to that, you were Senior Officer in Greater Manchester. So, you know, Greater Manchester, the West Midlands, two of the largest cities in England. Aren't you interested in policing the largest city in England, indeed in the United Kingdom, the Metropolitan Police, as their Commissioner?
So I've learnt over a period of time to have a very good joke about Britain's second city, and it'll relate to answer your question. So people ask when I came here whether Birmingham was the second city or Manchester, and I've always said since I got this job that since the Olympics, London has clearly placed itself in third place. So having policed two fantastic police forces, I don't think that's the job for me. I think it's going to be really interesting to see who applies, but I don't think it's going to be me, no.
So, okay, so that's a no from Sir Dave Thompson. I'm not surprised at that answer. You had given some indication, I think, elsewhere of that, but it's a pretty firm no, even today. Now, looking back over your more recent policing career as the Chief Constable of West Midlands, you know, West Midlands has been less in the news over that period of time than many other forces. So, you know, your tenure has coincided with what appears to me from the outside to have been quite a tranquil time in policing.
Wow. I'm not sure you describe the West Midlands as necessarily tranquil. As you can imagine, that, you know, there are 3 million people live in the conurbations of West Midlands. We have the youngest population in the country. We've got more under 25s than any other police force area. Birmingham, where we are today, half the population is under 25, and we're the second most ethnically diverse part of the country. So it comes with a full panoply of policing challenges. But I suppose if you were to talk about controversial issues around policing, then, you know, I think we seem to have navigated some of those things perhaps better or more fortunately than elsewhere, really, maybe.
So you've touched on diversity there, and I do want to return to that in a moment, not least because you are the NPCC lead on diversity. But before we get there, I just want to remark on some of the change that you've overseen in West Midlands with for example, what you call WMP 2020, your major change programme that took place between 2015 and 2020, when you were making change to process, to systems, all in a manner that actually has not or was not beset by some of the difficulties that we've seen elsewhere.
Yeah. So, I mean, the challenge that we faced, and this was one my predecessor as Chief, Chris Sims, faced, and then myself, is that West Midlands Police lost more money than any other police force in the country. So 22% of our money went, over 2,000 police officers. We lost more police officers than the Metropolitan Police has done during austerity. And that basically, as the mission of policing got bigger, the demands got heavier, you know, we needed an absolute step change to get, frankly, more out of a lot less people, because policing's mission has changed dramatically in that 10 years. So what WMP 2020 was really was it was a partnership we formed with Accenture, because we realised the skills we needed to deliver that quantum of change couldn't be done by the force on its own. And those changes, of course, there was some restructuring, but it was things like a step change in mobile data. We're the only police force in the country with our own data science lab. We've changed our command and control, our operational policing systems, our estate. So that quantum of change we needed to make sure the force could weather those challenges was huge. So I think what was a really good call, and it was a call that was began by my predecessor, and I worked on it aside with him, was we developed a strategic partnership with the private sector. We had a 5-year kind of plan with a 3-year rolling vision, and I guess between us we've kept the continuity to see it through, and we're past that phase now. We're going into happier times with Uplift. But that type of change programme, and the other thing I think I would say is a success to it was the buy-in of police and crime commissioners. So both Bob Jones, the first police and crime commissioner, and then through David Jameson, and obviously now through Simon Foster, we've been able to keep that level of vision around the programme between ourselves and the PCC.
So the programme took place over those 5 years.
Yeah.
It's now broadly seeing the benefits. I've seen some reports that show that the investments that you made overall, including with Accenture, has more than paid itself back. Were you to face similar circumstances as you were familiar with back in 2014? Would you go through a similar program today, do you suppose?
Yeah, I think we learned a lot through doing this. I think it's, there is something for how policing works with the private sector that we have to reflect on. We tend to go and look for particular commodities. We latch on a product we want to buy. We'll go out and be very, perhaps sometimes product-centric, or we always focus a little bit on the cost of things, not the benefits. What that relationship enabled us to do was, frankly, work with a trusted partner, and I would genuinely say the relationships were very strong through that period. Keep a competitive edge in that, so Accenture didn't get all the work. We actually had a competitive process through this, but navigated us through and helped us think about things that we couldn't have done on our own steam, and at the same time constantly look to transfer the skill from them into us. So we built some very strong capabilities in the force. I think it's something policing could do more generally. We face massive technology challenges. The challenges 43 forces face are often similar, and yet we often go about them in a kind of very balkanized way. And so there's a lot of learning from that I think we could take forward in policing.
So you mentioned, I think, that you have the only data science unit in the whole of the country. Was that something that came about as a result of that work? And so what benefit do you now think that you get, or know that you get from that?
Yeah, so that work was a particular information driving action was a key part of what we wanted to do. And what we know is the level of information we just hold, let alone partners, is colossal. So the types of things we've been able to do is create a predictive offender management model based on terabytes of analysis of offending. We're able to do things like our shift patterns, work them through to look at a shift pattern for response cops that minimises injury as well as productivity. We're doing some great work on organised crime mapping that's more sophisticated. And actually we've tried through the NDOS project to make that something that actually is available to all of policing, because not every force needs a data analytics lab. We should be sharing more of these capabilities, and even a force the size of West Midlands can't generate all this stuff itself. So there's been some really innovative thinking through the programme, and it's helped strengthen policing hugely.
Let's move on a little here to shortly before I met you, I was having a little bit of a wander around the I think it's called Colmore Circus Queensway in Birmingham, and I hadn't come across this particular artwork before. And I'm just going to ask you just to pause there for a moment, because it struck me that the wording on it, which says forward, nobody's here without a struggle. We all came here from somewhere together, or forward together. And then we have the picture of these members of the community, and I believe they are modelled on genuine members of the community, all pulling in the same direction to raise this standard, this forward together. Now, forgive me if this is a little bit of a tenuous link, but it does bring me through to diversity, because this is a diverse community represented in this statue. So, as NPCC lead on diversity, considering that the NPCC, the National Police Chiefs Council, back in June 2020 said that the aim, the determination was to have an anti-racist police service. How far do you think policing has got on that journey?
Yeah, so we are due to publish the plan that we're going to make available to the public shortly. I don't lead just on diversity, I lead on race and inclusion, and let's be really honest, the race and inclusion plan I'm talking about is very specifically focused on black people. and I'll come back to that. So what happened for policing? Well, 2020, just like here in Birmingham, policing globally and the UK was really touched by the issues around George Floyd's murder. That transcended, I think, to lots of issues about injustice towards black people. Was absolutely about policing as well as other issues. And what we did in MPCC really is that there was a conversation, I think, around where we were. People like ourselves here in the West Midlands, who I think have done a lot, said, you know what, we've not done enough. Other forces joined that view. And what we did, we started trying to look at, well, what we're going to do differently. Because here's the challenge, I think, with the race issue. Have we not been trying to do things on use of force, stop search, recruit diverse staff since Stephen Lawrence and before, and frankly not been anywhere near as successful as I'd expected? We're at a time where confidence in policing is lower from the black community. So the question is, what are we going to do differently that delivers the step change? And I think that's proven hard. And I think what we've had to do is do some different things. So the construction of the programme's been different. We brought in an independent oversight board chaired by Abimbola Johnson, who's going to challenge to make sure we deliver what we say we're going to do for the community. We've had to look with the college at a new outcomes framework that chiefs have agreed that we're going to work through.
Can I just say, chiefs have agreed, because getting 43 plus chiefs is not trivial.
No, it isn't. Chiefs have agreed the outcome framework and the plan that sits behind this. I think we've also had to have the debate, through that process we've had the challenge around, well, is policing institutional racist? What's our position on that? Which we've worked through. And so we're now getting to the stage where actually the plan that we will work to, which we have been doing stuff against. I mean, no force has been asleep on this, but we will publish that now, because that will go into a phase.
Published when? Very shortly.
Yeah, we intend to publish that. It'll probably be in May. We're just in the period on the run up to local elections now, so we don't intend to publish it in that period, but probably in May, in the middle of May, we'll intend to make that clear, and that I think is the end of the beginning. The really hard work starts now, I'm afraid, which is making sure we deliver on our promises.
Absolutely, but before delivering on promises, it needs a united, a concerted agreement from chiefs who will lead in their individual forces on delivering this material. So is there genuinely agreement and commitment amongst chiefs to...
Yes, there is. I mean, everybody has a different context where the force is. So, we talked before, Bernard, about how super diverse this region is. Issues to do with race are an everyday issue if you're the Chief Constable of West Midlands Police. Actually, they may not be as a constant issue in other areas, but what all chiefs agree on is confidence in policing is lower among black people. Despite great progress that we're making on recruiting more ethnic minority officers, we are not making a step change in recruiting black people. We are not seen as a career of choice. We are using force, we are searching more on those communities, and we recognise we've got to do something different. And let's go back to victimisation. We know, don't we, that particularly young black men are heavily victimised through criminality as well. So that acceptance of the challenge is there. The desire to be transparent, so part of the plan, we will be publishing a lot more, and chiefs will be setting out what they intend to do around their data so that we're held to account more transparently. So a lot of work to do still, but as I work with colleagues, the commitment is there. We may all come from different positions, but the shared understanding of the problem is across the board.
Let's continue walking a little. So we've talked there quite a bit about ethnicity and policing. I think you said your portfolio was diversity.
It's specifically, my role is race and inclusion, so it's not diversity in general, but of course it's important to understand it, and even within the race portfolio, if I'm honest, the plan I'm delivering is about black communities. Okay,
so the wider question of diversity, sexuality, gender and so on, that portfolio lies elsewhere rather than under...
It's the Chief of North Wales or something.
Okay. So as we're stepping now towards the... actually, this is quite a street that we're about to go down.
Steelhouse Lane.
Steelhouse Lane, because it also has it has law courts, it has former cells, which we will be, the museum houses those. It also has the former youth court down here. So there's almost the sort of footsteps of history down here.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is the heart of what would have been the Victorian Birmingham, which is a lot smaller than Birmingham today. So if we just went up the road to an area like Handsworth that we would all know has been solidly Birmingham. That was in Staffordshire in Victorian days, so this is the heart of the old Victorian city.
Things have changed over the last 50 years in terms of policing geography. The next topic I want to come to does play to history to some degree, and that is the over-regulation of services, as we find that policing is inevitably changing. You know, the world of the internet didn't exist 30 years ago. The challenges of cybercrime didn't exist 30 years ago. The direction of travel here in the UK, here in England and Wales, seems to be more laws, more legislation, more expectation on police officers at a time when, okay, there may be an uplift in the number of police officers, but it really puts pressure on policing. And you have been on record in your days of leading for the National Police Chiefs Council on Finance of being critical on regarding the cuts that there were to policing. So this over-regulation of services, what's the solution?
Yeah, sure. So I think the story of policing has been, hasn't it, that we have reduced, and the current government's reversing, which is great. We reduced the amount of police, and we broadened the mission bigger than ever. So if we were talking 12 years ago, we were talking about theft of pedal cycles, serious acquisitive crime in the UK. We weren't talking about domestic abuse, county lines, modern slavery, human trafficking, CSA. So this range of vulnerability crimes has grown up significantly over this period. At the same time, the money's dropped. And then the other issue that's come with that is I would describe as more regulation. So how we record crime has become much more onerous. The prosecutions we're having to produce, the days where PC Thompson walked into the custody block on 4 sides of A4 left his prisoner, have long gone. So that is taking a long period of time. And my real concern really is that over-regulating policing, over-prescribing policing is removing, I think, the general common sense problem solving of policing if we're not careful. But it's creating so much work to process all these things that we are eating up the resourcing. So the demand we're asked to tackle's grown. The way we have to do it's got more complex, and the standard we have to do it's got more complex. That all means less productivity or more resources. So I think the challenge is, and I think this is a genuine challenge for public services, how do we begin to consider simplifying? I saw a Grey article the other day that says 50% of maternity units in the country are not fit for purpose. Well, the challenge could be that the way we measure not fit for purpose has gone beyond the ability of services to deliver them, and I think we've got to have an honest question what public services can do now.
So greater demand, fewer officers, fewer resource. The solution not clear, but a debate, in part a debate that the Police Foundation here in the UK led with the closest I think that there has been to a Royal Commission on Policing. An amazing task, amazing challenge that the Foundation set themselves. What was your take on their findings?
I think the analysis of the problem was very good, really. This growth of, we are asking the police to do more and more, the way we're asking the police to work has got more complex, the types of evidence we deal with. So that whole context challenge was there. I think the challenge genuinely is that probably some of the solutions is where it gets hard. So the Royal Commission was very good to identify just jumping out of 43 police forces may not be the answer. I do think they're right that more things need to be shared across policing, more capabilities. Not every force can own all this capability. So I think there's some good signals in the right direction, but I thought it was very thorough on its analysis of the challenge policing forms. And I don't think we're unique in public services. We are always trying to lift the standard, aren't we? The challenge is that lifting standards and increasing the complexity of how we do things costs more money, and there is a finite amount of public spending. And I'm certainly not, when I was leading the finance work in the past, I was saying that we needed more money for policing. Looking at the economic situation, looking at the global situation, we've got to be realistic. There probably isn't going to be any more money for policing, so it's what we do with the money we've got.
And so the money is unlikely. More money is unlikely to be the solution. I'm sure the Police Foundation and others would wish that some action results as a consequence of the analysis they've done, even if it isn't to pick up each and every recommendation of theirs. We are stood just outside the newly opened. It opens, so it's Monday morning. This museum opens just on Saturday.
It did.
Now, you are the NPCC lead on heritage.
I am.
So I think this is, it is remarkably timed. Firstly, that I am here on the Monday that the museum is open. Could you lead us just into the museum? And we're just going to step in, and
we're gonna have to ring the bell.
I thought it might still be open, but it was open a little earlier.
Yeah, don't worry.
Because I had the opportunity to take a look round as a paying visitor. And it was fascinating. So we're not here going to step too far into
we'll see. We'll talk about the building though, and what's here perhaps. So because it is the reason why I'm the heritage lead as well. So this building at Steelhouse Lane, there are two police buildings. This is the old Victorian building. The building next to it is a 1930s building we still use for some administrative, non-public facing work. And the lockup here at Steelhouse Lane was open in Victorian times. It was adjoined, it was where prisoners were held in the Bridewell as they went into the magistrates' court. And then it moved into being the operational custody block from the 1890s until 2016 when we closed it. This was the route your prisoners came in off the street all the way up to 2016 through the front door, kicking, screaming, struggling on many occasions, I'm sure. We think we had about 1 million people through here in its lifetime. 1 million prisoners is a good guess. I'm hoping to get 1 million visitors through. But the museum's a really good opportunity to bring to life, I think, both the past and the future of policing in an interesting building.
And sadly, it doesn't look as if we're going to be able to get in, but that's my oversight for not checking what time the building's shut. For those that are interested, it is a fascinating 3-floor tour of police cells, so a chance to get into a police cell without having to be detained. First, it contains some fascinating history of West Midlands Police. It discusses the forensic side. It has a police horse in there.
It does, not a real one. And we don't have horses anymore. It's a bit of an artifact from the past. I mean, I think the bits that are just very briefly interesting about the museum is people, Birmingham City Police was the first police force in the country to use fingerprints. It was one of the first to use photographs. The Peaky Blinders pictures are in the museum, which is fantastic.
Peaky Blinders, for those not familiar with Peaky Blinders, some in the UK will be familiar from the TV programme, but there was a real life Peaky Blinders gang here in Birmingham.
There was, and we've got a Peaky Blinders cap from a museum in there that there's much debate whether the razor blades were kept in the peak, but no doubt we'll, if you go along, you can enter the debate over that.
So effectively a cap in look similar structure to your own current cap, albeit made from fabric, but the actual rim where you have what I don't know other than scrambled egg, but the fleur-de-lis, I suppose, is the more appropriate name. That was a weapon that was used against other members of other gangs. What I wanted to come on to, and I now will come on to, you have a chance as lead of NPCC Heritage to look back, and you've brought that to life in the museum here in Birmingham. Your police career, to some extent, the time of leaving that you've chosen with the completion of the Commonwealth Games, as will happen in roughly the mid-August this year. There's almost a symmetry, because you also policed the Commonwealth Games in Manchester in 2002, so 20 years ago.
That's right.
So things will have changed a bit since then, but you have the familiarity of policing one Commonwealth Games previously. Beyond those Commonwealth Games, July, August this year, what next for Sir Dave Thompson, QPM?
I mean, I'm very busy thinking about Commonwealth Games at the moment, and certainly for people who are thinking of coming to the city, hugely exciting time. I absolutely decided I wanted to stay and see that through because I saw the transformation it's happening in Greater Manchester, so I'm very passionate about the games. I think in terms of the future, so there's probably a little bit of a time for a rest. And I'm kind of working through whether or not I want to, whether I should stay in policing in some other roles, and to keep an eye out for what they might be, because actually it's the right time for somebody new to come to the West Midlands, but I haven't lost any of my enthusiasm for policing, so we'll see what the world looks like there. And there are plenty of other things I think that are out there where I think we all recognise as we're leaving policing we've got skills to bear, so I'm not quite sure what the future looks like yet. Hopefully it will have some contact with policing, but we'll see. But certainly, and I hope to keep some contact with the region. I mean, when you finish being the chief, you need to stay well away from the force and let the new person get on. But it's certainly a region I have huge enthusiasm for as well.
Well, here we are. We're just about to step over the crossing. I hope I've got you back safely to your headquarters without any untoward incident. Sir Dave Thompson, QPM, thank you so much for your hospitality and for your time here this afternoon. And
Somebody fell, I'm just going back and cycle. Oh right, no problem. Okay.
So thank you so much, and here's all the best to you with what might lie ahead.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Let's go in.